अभी मैं वृंदा को बोलती हूँ। वृंदा ये वैसे हमारी, जैसे विजय के बारे में बोला कि बम्बई में हमारा गो टू लॉयर है, वैसे वृंदा वुमेन्स मूवमेंट के लिए गो टू लॉयर है। वृंदा is based in Delhi. She actively engages with women's rights and human rights movement. She has appeared in landmark cases representing victims and survivors of sexual violence, communal conflict, extrajudicial executions, sexual minorities, trade unions, human rights defenders, and media practitioners. Vrinda has contributed to the drafting of laws to protect women and children from domestic violence and sexual violence, and is engaged in advocacy for law prohibiting torture. Her research and writing proves the impunity for human rights violation in conflict areas under extraordinary legal regimes and targeted violence against religious minority. In 2018, she was conferred an honorary degree by SOAS, University of London, in recognition of her contribution to area of human rights and civil liberties. वृंदा ये बात कर फोकस करेगी। अभी तक हम सोच रहे थे कि जो आईपीसी सीआरपीसी एविडेंस है वो एक सरकार को हथियार देता है कि लोगों के ह्यूमन राइट्स को कैसे वायोलेट करे, उनके ऊपर कैसे बंधन डाले या उनको कैसे जेल में डाले। उसके साथ साथ बहुत सारे सर्वाइवर्स होते हैं जो मार्जिनलाइज सेक्शन में से, जैसे औरतें हैं, सेक्सुअल माइनॉरिटीज है, दलित्स है, कि जो सर्वाइवर को जस्टिस मिलना, न्याय मिलना भी उतना ही आवश्यक है। और इसके लिए एक थोड़ा बैलेंसिंग एक्ट जैसे होता है कि हम कैसे कानून में बदलाव लाए जिससे सर्वाइवर्स को जस्टिस मिले और उसी समय सरकार के हाथ मजबूत न हो लोगों के खिलाफ। तो वृंदा ये जेंडर जस्टिस और सिविल राइट्स के ऊपर अपनी बात अभी आपके सामने रखेंगे। वृंदा।
थैंक यू संध्या, एंड thank you to PUCL and Forum. And I'm very happy to be here because I think it's important for us to engage with the issue. And I know that amongst us also, there are different viewpoints on what should be done with the Criminal Law Reform Committee. And it ranges from boycott to participation under duress, to constantly write to them to stop this process. So there is a range amongst us also. And I'm very happy for this occasion to discuss this and engage with it, even as we may hold different positions. So as Vijay said, some of us are part of a process in which Vijay is really holding it together for all of us in many ways. और हम लोग engage कर रहे हैं। हमने भी अपनी आपत्तियां, अपनी objections, अपनी reservations उनको लिखित में भेजी हैं और कहा है कि हम under protest ये जवाब दे रहे हैं। इससे पहले मुझे क्यों पर्सनली लगता है वो जरूरी है, जब भी इस तरह का कोई एक्सरसाइज सरकार चलाती है तो उसमें एक ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड क्रिएट होता है, एक ऑफिशियल नैरेटिव क्रिएट होता है। वो ऑफिशियल नैरेटिव, और हम जानते हैं कि खासकर ये सरकार के पास जो रिसोर्सेज हैं कि वो उनकी तरह सोचने वाले भी बहुत वकील हैं, बल्कि अधिवक्ता परिषद नाम की एक पूरी संगठन है विद ब्रांचेस अक्रॉस द कंट्री, जिसमें बहुत से वकील मेंबर हैं, हजारों की तादाद में, जिनका आइडियोलॉजिकल अफिलिएशन है विद द प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट। वो लोग पार्टिसिपेट शायद कर रहे हैं, मुझे जानकारी नहीं है, मगर हो सकता है कर रहे हैं, वो अपने जवाब लिखेंगे। तो एक ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड ऑफ आंसर्स रिसीव्ड एंड एन ऑफिशियल नैरेटिव इज क्रिएटेड। I feel it's always very important. Dissent must be placed on record. We may on our own say we want to it, we think it's wrong. I actually totally agree and adhere to that position. But the dissent, whether it is going to remain in our context, कि हम ऑफिशियल नैरेटिव का हिस्सा बनाएंगे और ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड का हिस्सा बनाएंगे, मुझे लगता है आज की तारीख में ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड पर डिसेंट आना है ताकि उसको प्रेज ना किया जाए। So that is my personal inclination to participate in this. Secondly, I would like to say I think it's very ironical that ये पूरा process of legal reform, particularly criminal law reform, is being undertaken at a juncture in this country's history, जब across the board साफ दिख रहा है कि penal laws, and it's not just confined to Indian Penal Code, we know the UAPA, etc., are being used very, very actively. वो एक weapon of choice बन गया है आज सरकार के लिए, to criminalize any form of public dissent, to demonize it, and then to use it to arrest, उनको बंद करना और उसके थ्रू एक जिसको चिलिंग इफेक्ट कहते हैं, पूरे देश में एक डर और भय का एनवायरनमेंट बनाना. सो एक समय जब लॉ एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट ऑफ ऑपरेशन rather than an enabling instrument, which law originally should be, and while this may be more a period when everybody is experiencing it, we know that many marginalized communities, particularly Adivasis, Dalits, have invariably experienced law as an instrument of oppression rather than an enabling instrument. But today, that experience is much more widespread. And at that juncture, to be talking about criminal law reform has an irony in itself, which sets the context and the tone of what we are part of. I just want to refer to an interview given by Professor Ranbir Singh, the former Vice Chancellor of NLUD. They now have a new Vice Chancellor since yesterday, I believe, which he gave to Frontline magazine on September 25th, 2020. And I think his answer is very interesting to look at, and then to see the nature of the questions and the kind of answers, the kind of questions that are asked, and the kind of pattern, if any, that emerges from those questions. So he was asked, can you give specific examples of the reforms that are being envisaged? And he says, this is Professor Ranbir Singh's answer: when I had a meeting in the Ministry of Home Affairs, the impression was that these laws, being colonial laws, they were drafted when there was no universal declaration of human rights, and we didn't also have our own constitution. Now we should look at the laws to examine whether they are compatible with international covenants and our constitution. No effort was made to look at the criminal laws from the point of view of the constitution and particularly fundamental human rights. That was the idea, basically, that was conveyed to me at the meeting. So he sets the threshold very high. This is being done to make us compatible with international human rights law regime and chapter 3 of the fundamental rights chapter. And this is the person who had this meeting, and this is what he understood as being the motivating reasons behind this exercise. The next question he's asked is, does the committee plan to consult experts and a wider audience? I don't know why audience, but anyway. So he says, most of the experts are with us. That's the 5 men, the 5 wise men. He says, we will consult them whenever there is a confusion in our minds. So they will consult the experts when there is a confusion. So I'm really not sure who's writing the report. They are very senior police officers and academics. So Vijay, actually lawyers are not even in the running. We are going for a wider consultation, etc., etc. The last line of his answer, please read. It's a fascinating interview in Frontline. He says, ultimately, it will be decided by the Home Ministry and Parliament. All right. So that is the nodal ministry. What gets decided in Parliament? I think the experience of this week shows you where parliamentary process is, what kind of lawmaking, what kind of deliberation is now going to be, what kind of farce in the name of lawmaking will happen in Parliament. The next question, and this may not be directly relevant, but I do wish to draw everybody's attention to it. It's asked, many academics have come under attack, been put behind bars without bail, under some of these stringent and controversial laws, some of which you plan to look into. You are an academic. What is your opinion on this? So he says, I have not seriously looked at this, but as this is not connected to what we are discussing today, I would prefer not to talk about this. So this is Professor Ranbir Singh, who was the Vice Chancellor of National Law University, Delhi, where Sudha Bharadwaj, जिसको आप में से बहुत लोग अच्छे से जानते हैं, वो वहां पढ़ा रही थी। अपने अरेस्ट के टाइम अगस्त 2018 में सुधा वहां पढ़ाती थी। वो कह रहे हैं मैंने इसके बारे में सोचा नहीं है कि मेरे यहाँ 2 साल से पढ़ाने वाली प्रोफेसर आज बॉम्बे की बाइकुला जेल में एक क्रिमिनल कॉन्स्पिरेसी केस में बंद है, और ना तो उनको लगता है कि ये कॉन्टेक्स्ट है जिसमें क्रिमिनल लॉज को के बारे में सोचना चाहिए, ना उन्होंने विशेष कोई ध्यान इस विषय में दिया है. Then he says, and this refers to some things perhaps which Rebecca may speak to. He says there is a need for reform at all levels. The world is changing. Forensic science has to keep pace. There are multiple layers of reform. The report is only one part of that. So that is where these are the people who are holding this reform and who are in charge of this reform process. This is how they understand. There can be no quarrel that yes, and I have actually written and spoken repeatedly that the criminal law of this country did not measure to the touchstone of the Constitution, and it should have been an exercise that we undertook at that time. So on that, I totally agree with the proposition that Professor Ranveer Singh puts in. But then I don't see that reflected at all in the questions that come before us. अगर ये उनकी मनसा है और ये उनका उद्देश्य है, तो फिर वो सवाल हमें क्यों नहीं दिख रहे जिनके ऊपर आज सोचना, आज हमारे जो 70 साल का अनुभव रहा है क्रिमिनल लॉ के साथ, वो क्यों नहीं सामने आ रहा. This is not the first time these kind of efforts have been made. We know that in 2003, the Malimat Committee did a similar exercise, which was, and it was in 2003, it took about 2 to 3 years to put the report together. So that was the previous NDA regime. So this is not the first time the NDA regime is embarking on this exercise. And I think that's important to remember, because they have their ideological rubric. In their ideological rubric, the way law state apparatus runs, there are transformations that they want. And therefore, perhaps the 2003 initiative, which had to be aborted, it came under stringent criticism from many of us. And the Malimat Committee report was set aside. But this seems to be another initiative taken when they are in power again. So we need to keep that backdrop in our mind. There has been a lot of comment made, including in the letters that were sent about representation, composition, etc. I think we need to further sharpen our own criticism and not just say composition, where are the women, where are the trans people, where are the disability groups people. We need to be talking about diversity of experiences and perspectives. We know that they've set up, there can be people from all constituencies who can be very close to their ideological standpoint of power of the state, power of the police, rights of people. So I think we will have to go beyond the identity description to opinions and expressions and experiences and understanding. And as was said by Vijay and has been said earlier also, what we find is that there is no, the concerns and anxieties that we see reflected today, not just today, but for many years, and those experiences have been documented, etc., as to what are the concerns with the penal laws, that does not find necessary reflection or resonance in the questions. I'll come to the aspect of gender later. I want to first talk about the silences. I think sometimes one understands a process by seeing what is missing rather than what is there. And I think the silence and the absence, जो चीजें है ही नहीं, जिनके बारे में बात ही नहीं हुई, चर्चा ही नहीं हुई, इतने सारे सवाल पूछ लिया आपने हमसे, मगर जो बातें एकदम सामने आ रही हैं, और अगर संविधान की कसौटी पे आपने देखना है और ह्यूमन राइट्स की कसौटी पे आपने देखना है, तो वो सवाल तो पहले सवाल होने चाहिए थे, और उनके बिना तो ये प्रोसेस शुरू ही नहीं हो सकता था. वो बिल्कुल मिसिंग है. इसमें मैं 3 बातों पर एम्फसाइज करूंगी. सबसे पहले custodial violence or custodial torture, whether it is custodial death, custodial rape, all manner, इसके ऊपर इतनी तो सहमति है इस देश में कि ये होता है. ये हो सकता है कि कुछ लोगों को लगता है होना चाहिए, मगर ये देश में होता है, ये बात पर कोई डिनायल किसी भी से भी नहीं हो सकता. बहुत सालों से एक प्रोसेस चल रहा है 1997 से कि हम एक टॉर्चर लॉ बनाएंगे, एक टॉर्चर के खिलाफ. यूपीए गवर्नमेंट ने 2010 में एक अधमरा सा बिल बनाया था, उसके ऊपर चर्चा हुई. तब सिलेक्ट कमिटी में जाते थे बिल्स, हम लोग भी सिलेक्ट कमिटीज के सामने जाते थे और हम वहां पे अपनी बातें रखते थे. पुलिस, academics, lawyers, NGOs, everybody made a representation and a new bill was crafted out of those suggestions. Of course, then then UPA also forgot about it. After all that, those are not issues on which you win and lose elections. और उसकी कहानी वहीं खत्म हो गई. हाल 2 बारी सुप्रीम कोर्ट में इस पर पेटिशंस हो चुकी हैं. दोनों बारी गवर्नमेंट कह रही है yes, yes, we are looking into it. Law Commission has given a report, if I'm not mistaken, as late as in it's 2018, 2017. The 273rd Law Commission of India report in 2017 says we need a stand-alone law against torture. Last week in the Lok Sabha, the government, while responding to a question, has said, हम अलग से कोई कानून टॉर्चर पर नहीं बनाएंगे. जो आईपीसी के प्रोविजंस हैं वो काफी हैं. आज तक इसलिए हम रैटिफाई नहीं कर सके यूएन कन्वेंशन अगेंस्ट टॉर्चर क्योंकि वो काफी नहीं है और इस पर कोई बहस नहीं हो सकती, बिकॉज दिस इज अ रीडिंग ऑफ द कन्वेंशन. यू कांट चेंज दैट. But now they have clearly spoken their mind. So here is a country where the NHRC's largest number of complaints every single year, this data is available on the NHRC's website, is for custodial torture. This government says we are not bringing any new law, this is enough. They have not asked us a question in so many questionnaires. Do you need to change that provision? Do you need to add something to the provision? What is the reason that torture is continuing despite these two provisions, which are anyway only relating to confession, which is a limitation in the law itself? कोई whisper ही नहीं है उसके बारे में, तो उसको तो छोड़ दिया गया और हमें बोल रहे हैं कि ये तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और यूनिवर्सल डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स और इंटरनेशनल ह्यूमन राइट्स फलान ढिमकान. तो जब आपको इतना भी राइट नहीं है एज अ सिटीजन ऑफ एन इंडिपेंडेंट डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री run by the rule of law to protect your own integrity of your body. And we saw what happened in Tamil Nadu recently, and it is commonplace. It's not, that wasn't a new thing that happened. तो ये तो है इनका जो allegiance है to human rights. Secondly, I want to talk about, and I'll quickly link these two, I won't belabor the point here. There are extrajudicial killings which we fancily call, misleadingly call encounters. उसके ऊपर कोई सवाल नहीं आया. They have scanned and scarred many judgments of the Supreme Court in formulating these questions, which you can make out. There are judgments of the Supreme Court writing what the guidelines should be. We know where the legal hurdles are. They don't seem to bring that in. Then you come to the point which was touched upon by Vijay, which is the point about sanction for prior sanction for prosecution of a public servant. The smallest chapter in the Indian Penal Code today is chapter 9, which says offenses by public servants. Yes, this is a colonial law. Under a colonial regime, the public servant was protected. In a democratic, independent constitutional democracy, there should be equality, and the privileges, the legal privileges and the legal immunities given by the crown to the public servants should be erased. The only change that was brought into section 197 of the Code of Criminal Procedure when India becomes independent and adopts a constitution 1950 is the words servants of the crown was substituted by the public servant. No change made in the legal privileges and immunities enjoyed by public servants. In fact, questionnaire में कह रहे हैं कि क्या public servants को के जो offenses हैं उनको खत्म कर देते हैं और बस उनके ऊपर disciplinary inquiry होगी. So there is clearly an effort to give them greater power and less accountability by taking them away from any purview of Indian of any accountability from courts for their actions to be held liable and criminally culpable, which is contrary to the, because as we are being told the law is changing. Well, then let us look at the international criminal law doctrine as formulated by the Rome Statute, which talks about command responsibility, superior responsibility, individual criminal liability. Those are the areas. Why do they find no reflection here? I'll leave that. I'll move to another aspect quickly, which is when we spoke about, it was mentioned about gender. I think here I want to say actually two kinds of things. One, I think for feminists, this is a very important moment to be very watchful. And I deliberately use the term feminists here because feminists are not going to talk exclusively about rights for women, but would be interrogating powers and systemic and structural powers. If you were to see when did certain legal changes for the benefit of women happen in Pakistan, it actually came during the military regime of General Musharraf. So it is not unusual for authoritarian regimes to actually give certain rights to women while creating a complete clampdown on all civil liberties and democratic spaces, as though women don't exist and are not. And if there was any confusion on that count, I think the human rights defenders in jail today in the Delhi violence have many young women at the forefront of these struggles. So while there seems to be a ticking of the box, the questions as they are posed, and I'll just refer to one or two, I won't read them out because it'll take time. They have not been thought about at all. They have been mentioned there so that perhaps in the interview post the process, it can be said, oh, we asked questions about rape. Those questions can only be formulated by somebody who forgot to read the 2013 amendments in the law. The 2013 amendments are the answer to the question that has been asked. So yes, the women's box has been ticked. They ask some random questions on rape, etc., but without, so what should be the definition of consent? It's given in the law. It's perfectly fine. The interpretation of the law suffers from prejudice. So that we deal in a separate place. You don't deal with that. वो statutory reform से उसका कुछ नहीं बनेगा. फिर एक अजीबोगरीब सवाल है 377 सेक्शन को लेके कि अब इसमें हम सारे बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ को बदल देते हैं. किसके लिए बदल रहे हैं? उसका क्या असर होगा? 377 अब किस पे अप्लाई होता है? आपने ट्रांसजेंडर पर्सन्स का जो लॉ है उसको इतना भद्दा बनाया है. तो ये जो तरीका है एक टिक बॉक्स करने का, तो जरा सा डिसेबिलिटी को किया, जरा सा ट्रांस को किया, इट इज रियली वाइल. ये बेहुदा प्रोसेस है. ये उसमें आप लोगों को सिर्फ टोकनिज्म से भी वर्स ट्रीट कर रहे हैं. सो आई थिंक वी नीड टू हैव अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग कमेंट ऑन दैट. And I think I'm going to end with just saying we need to place on record what our dissenting views are, because otherwise it would appear that there was no other opinion in this country, although that is what will definitely be projected invariably. And we need to remember the time where, even during COVID, how a public health emergency was turned into a law and order problem, and the police and Section 188, which everybody now in this country knows, became the most abused, overused section. So how do they repeatedly use penal laws to punish people? And if you were to have, and I'm not going to waste time on that, but please have a look at the NCRB data of 2019, which shows you who are the people who are incarcerated. Dalits, Muslims, Adivasis, both amongst the convicted and amongst the under trials, have an over-representation in prisons in India today across the country. So perhaps, again, in keeping with, in human rights, etc., there is another Law Commission report, the 277th Law Commission report, which talks about wrongful prosecution. आज की तारीख में अगर आपको गलत इनकार्सरेट किया जाए, चाहे वो भीमा कोरेगांव कॉन्स्पिरेसी हो या दिल्ली राइट्स का क्रिमिनल कॉन्स्पिरेसी हो, where is the law to punish, prosecute, and hold accountable the public servants who indulge in this malicious prosecution? So actually, I really think, and this thought has just come. I'm sure Vijay and I would discuss it with Vijay and Rebecca. Perhaps we could put together a set of alternative questions which deal with human rights, और हम कमेटी को भेज देंगे कि आप इनके बारे में सोचिए, जवाब हमारे पास है, मांग लीजिए. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vrinda. That was a really brilliant suggestion.